Hi everybody. Welcome. Here in the place I most like to walk these days. Though I would find other places if it were easy for me to travel. It's been very many years since I've owned a car, and I've only been in a car a few times. In the past couple of decades. Yesterday was the 4th of July, a holiday that in my childhood was pretty exciting because being a bit of a pyromaniac, any chance to play with fireworks was, I mean, just about as good as sex, maybe even better, as a young guy anyway. You know, as a kid, just really liked fire and things that exploded. Go figure. Or don't. I was just doing my meditation, and often when I'm done, I'll look around and I'll discover that a familiar being was watching over me. It's very reassuring when someone that we trust and love is looking out for us, watching over us, examining the context that we are in from above it rather than inside it, so that they can see the features that we inside it may be blind to. And I've learned a lot about this. Well, I've been introduced to many features of this situation by paying very careful attention to the birds. I've spoken in recent videos about the transformations in our time, in the zeitgeist, in the spirit of the moment. Particularly, I think there are two, maybe three distinct coping mechanisms that are common. Okay, they don't have to be distinct. They can go together. You can have, all three toppings on your pizza if you want. Toppings are something like despair, distraction, and war. So some people are responding to their current circumstances with despair. This is not unfamiliar to me personally, by the way. And others are trying to keep themselves distracted. What the heck is that supposed to be? Oh, I see. See, I was just distracting myself right there. There's a small object on the ground. I didn't know what it was. Oh, and by the way, when I mentioned the change in the spirit of time, I immediately changed the spirit of time. Not intentionally. By changing what I was doing, what I was attending. To one of the plants that I'm very close with, a specific plant. Not just a specific kind of plant, a plant. So some of us, in times when we are struggling or in crisis, we will distract ourselves. Others of us may go to war and become very angry, right? And have the sort of feeling that comes just before we step into combat mind, that feeling of I've had enough of this. I've had enough. It's a weird idea that, we think we've had enough of something, so now we're going to go into combat where we could be killed or maimed or have nothing ever after, or kill someone else or hurt them. But it's part of how animals may respond to stress and trauma and fear and constant concern about negative observation, lack of positive observation, lots of negative experiences, lack of positive experiences, lack of refreshment, lack of actual relaxation, lack of rejuvenation. So there's sort of two different kinds of things, right? One is something is missing from our lives and experience, or not something, but maybe, a whole catalog of things are missing. And then on the other hand, we have things we don't want, and are experiencing them, and things we feel justified in not wanting, right? So for example, on the way into the gardens this evening, some probably, psychotic person, probably schizophrenic street person, started screaming and hollering and apparently decided somehow that I was the problem. Right? So suddenly, out of nowhere, I become the projection target for a random, incoherently minded stranger who decides that he's going to get up out of his weird sleeping bag thing in the back of the bushes and come fuck with me. He's had enough, right? But I never gave him any. He certainly didn't have enough of me. I was trying to I had a slice of pizza. I was trying to eat my pizza and talk with someone I care about on the phone. And this guy decides that I'm, the big problem. So I just kind of keep some I'm walking around a bit and I just kind of keep some objects between us, and he's like circling, and that pisses him off even more. Because the truth is, I can tell actually from looking at the guy, he doesn't really want to have a fight with me, right? What he wants is to let off some steam, in a way. Now, of course, in the moment, I'm not analyzing the situation much, other than to keep enough objects between us that he's going to have to make a serious, like, jump over some shit or whatever to get to me if he decides that he really wants to get to me, right? And I can tell that mostly he's just got a lot of bark. But I'm not analyzing it too significantly in the moment. So anyway, my point is, I have nothing to do with this person at all. Like, nothing. I don't think I even glanced at him. And sometimes with people who are having, this kind of sort of mental illness plus rage thing going on, if you just look at them, it's enough to, suddenly they sort of don't want to be seen, right? And since they're always on display in public, it's painful for them to be seen because, again, they're not receiving positive observation, they're receiving negative observation. But in any case, something in this guy snapped and he decided I was the problem, and he was going to mostly have an adventure with himself, right? And probably he picked someone relatively innocuous, right? Me. Rather than picking someone who would actually fuck with him, right? Or step to him, or shut him down, or whatever, might otherwise happen. And this does happen to me occasionally. It's not terribly common, but lately it's been more common, right? Some random person or animal is having a bad day, and they decide, it's my fault. One of my friends is here, I see. She's a good spirit. So really what was happening there was, in those situations, I am acting in a way as the kind of medicine that draws the poison out. I'm not claiming I have this power or anything like that. I'm just saying people can ambiently realize, somehow intuitively, that I'm not likely to respond with the same frenzy that they're bringing. And so they pick me because I'm a harmless, I'm largely a harmless participant. And so if they're gonna act out and freak out at someone, if they select me, things will go better than if they select somebody who will actually put them in their place or fuck them up or whatever. And a lot of that selection process is not formal, right? It's informal. I wasn't terribly worried about the guy because it was fairly clear to me that he was just finding a focus to vent at. Right? Now, if things had become serious, I would have responded differently and quickly too. But I was aware enough to keep distance between us, so if he suddenly started closing the distance, then I would deal with the situation differently. And that's an example of war mind. Drug abuse, overeating, starving ourselves, watching things on television, playing video games, drinking, acting grandiose. It's more on the war mind end. I'll leave that one out. The other things, though, those are some of the things we do to distract ourselves when we're feeling pain and we're not with a cohort who can draw the poison out, right? So to speak. Poison's in our hearts, in our bodies, our metabolism, our psychology, our sleep patterns, our dreaming, our relationships, our jobs, our families, if we're lucky enough to still have them, so on. So after my meditation, I noticed there's a familiar being watching over me right now. A real living being, but also a soul, right? A spirit being. And that's actually very reassuring and medicinal. That's actually what I hope for. And what I was thinking last night, not last night actually. Loud noises. There's been a lot of them. I was thinking last night how much our fireworks are like the sound of what would happen if my city was being bombed, and how that's a pretty bizarre idea for a celebration. But this afternoon after sitting, I was thinking, occasionally it is as if, and I'm not claiming it is this way, but it is as if our life experience shifts in such a way that we're going to be tested, challenged, really. It's pretty easy, it's relatively easy, it's easier to cope with, oh wow, the Phoebe is watching the water, just as she was doing the other day. This is like her calming evening practice. She watches the little pool of water. It's really cool to see the same bird here again, doing the same thing, and she's not hunting. She's enjoying the diverse visions of life in the little pool. It's really beautiful. I know that little pool. I know what she's watching. Now, that doesn't mean she'll ignore a tasty insect if it flits by, but she's not hunting, really. Or if she is, she's doing both. It's the bird version of television, watching the water like that. And there's some gnats here. They respond to vibration. These ones do, not all of them. So I was thinking after my meditation that sometimes we are tested. And what that means is, when things are going relatively well and we're in relatively good shape and we can sleep and we have enough money and there's love in our life and our home is okay, or maybe even good, it's not so challenging to deal with the day-to-day troubles that may intrude upon our lives. But if one takes away all of these graces, right? All of these modes of peace or comfort, and we may feel that we just don't have anything left inside us. We can feel empty or bereft, or we can feel that we are dying. We can feel terrified, alone, sick, broken, sleepless, hopeless, isolated, filled with sorrow, attacked on every side, without hope, without help. Then there is a time of, challenge, being challenged and tested. And it's really hard. Many of us struggle with things we keep secret mostly. Certainly we don't advertise them. And they are deeply painful and sometimes horrible, horrifying. And often we have to struggle with them alone. There's no one there who will understand or help us. And things can change, right? It can go from being very bad to suddenly catastrophically worse or unexpectedly better. But my point is, in the darkest moments of our lives, when we are bereft of hope and there's no one for us to turn to for help, no human being anyway, and we need human beings. There are assets inside us, within us as humans and as animals and as organisms and as souls. There are assets hidden inside us that have been conserved for exactly this moment, right? For this situation, this kind of problem, where everything has gone wrong and there's no obvious hope and the future looks grim and dark, or even just like an endless array of new devastations. There are assets within us that we can use to traverse the terrifying chasm that our life sometimes becomes. But to awaken them, we must resist, or rather, not resist. We must divert our intention from despair, distraction, and war. Yeah. We must select something better for ourselves. And never is this more challenging than when we feel despair, or rage, or such extreme discomfort that we just can't, even if it's just emotional discomfort, not just, even if it is emotional discomfort, which some might think of as mere discomfort compared to physical discomfort, but usually these things come together, right? You get physical and emotional discomfort and relational discomfort and, can I pay the rent, and my fucking job sucks, and what the fuck is up with, this, and why is this person still harming me after 10 years, and fucking all these things, right? So in that storm, we become disoriented and confused, and then we tend to collapse toward reactivity more and more. Which will, in fact, that guy outside the park, he might have been having a bad day. Many of his days are probably rotten. He lives on the street. But it certainly would not have improved his day to get in a fight with me. And And things would not have gone well for him if that had happened, regardless of how angry he thinks he was. And I can be like that guy. Not quite as extreme as him, right? Where I'm just going to pick out some random stranger. But I can be like that guy in that I'll find someone who's been sticking a little thorn into my life for a while and form up against them in my thoughts. And the weird thing about that is that if I do that, if I make that choice, this is the challenge declined, right? I am declining the challenge of walking toward maturity, not in the dumb sense that we might often mean it, but in the sense of health, right? Or of intelligent action in crisis, right? And it won't help me to have people watching over me if I am disoriented, right? If I'm acting out. My protectors and allies will not have power if I form up against them, or if I form up against myself, or if I form up against my life path, or any of those things. Then those beings that watch over me and try to guide and teach and protect me, they will become powerless because I will be working against them. And their powers primarily only function if I go with them. And maybe my teachers and my guides and my protectors are actually talking through my own mouth to me at this moment. Because I certainly did not realize this properly until I began to talk this way, right now. And this was unplanned. The inspiration was that after I was sitting, I realized, sometimes our life situation transforms in such a way that we will tend either to collapse into decoherence, desynchronization, or we will stay the course, one foot after, one step at a time forward into the unknown, with our insecurities, with our pain, with our fear, but we will keep walking forward towards something trustworthy, in which case our allies and protectors are still powerful. And so it's kind of up to us, and you can imagine a day like, what would happen if for one day, for example, suddenly the sun doesn't rise. And that can be the kind of feeling that we have inside, right? That's when it's most important that we not lose our composure. Not that our composure should be feigned or something that we sort of force ourselves to do. That's not real composure. It's different. But no, we will keep walking in a way that retains some of our gifts. And again, we have assets within us that are poised for moments of great struggle, conflict, loss, pain, isolation, fear, injury, illness, death, war even. We should not be too quick to collapse toward those things when our experience begins to embody the storm or the void. I have to see if I can find my friend who's wandering here. So in times of great struggle, we have to be careful not to turn against ourselves and those who love us and our lineage, our ancestors, our connections in the living world, our connections in the world of souls, of time, of place. We mustn't give in. Like the captain of a ship in a storm, she knows the storm may sink her ship and they could be lost with all hands. But she also knows she's ridden many storms. And if we're going to lose all hands, we'll do it nobly and with dignity. Something like this. So, I'm just reminded that in times of challenge and crisis, that's when it's most important that we retain, sometimes we have to become the hope, right? We may feel completely hopeless, helpless, bereft, wrecked, destroyed, as if there's no future, or we may die at any moment. That's the beautiful time to practice deeply our way of life, the way of living beings together, with and for each other. I'll return to the video if I can in a few moments. I need to try to find my friend here for a second. Wish me luck. I didn't succeed, at least not yet. So be it. It can be hard to remember in crisis that challenge sort of has this bipolar potential. It's not merely a dual, a dual polarity, but it's easy to think in those terms for humans, so we too often do. We can either rise, so to speak, gain coherence, synchronization, harmony, or we can fall into decoherence, desynchronization, disharmony. So in a sense, the challenges are opportunities for us to grow, and also to establish the practice and the habit of remaining calm when things go sideways, especially when they go badly sideways, because that is when we most need coherent, intelligent, thoughtful, compassionate, being in presence with our life and all of life, and with death, and with time, and with the sky, and with all beings. In crisis is when we most need the stability that seems so difficult to nurture in such situations. It's always valuable, but it's vastly more valuable in the midst of catastrophe. And our people have entered a time of catastrophe. I strongly suspect that the relative calm and peace we have long known has been permanently and irrevocably shattered. And that wave of trouble will continue to build and roil and crash upon the shores of our lives and the lives of those we love. So it's never been more important for us to foster hope together and help each other to recover our capacity to have faith, not necessarily in the religious sense, in the emotional sense or the interior sense. That not only is all is not lost, but no matter what may come, we will stand together in dignity and love, with intelligence and foresight and forbearance and patience, with calm. And if there is no hope, then we will become that hope. And if there is no light, then we will become that light. And if there's no compassion, then we will become the compassion. And if there's no awareness, we will become the awareness. Together. And even if there are no others in our lives, even if we are completely isolated somehow, or very isolated in the midst of myriads of bodies of humans, right? Because this is the common situation. We're isolated among myriads of people, right? So ridiculous. It's like dying of starvation in the supermarket, you know, or you can't have anything because you don't have the money, or you know, dying of dehydration in the ocean because you're surrounded by water but you can't drink it or it'll kill you. These are the peculiar kinds of elemental circumstances that sometimes arise in our human lives, and also in our epochs, right? In the time being, the body of time. And again, you know, often when I'm writing or when I'm making these videos, I do imagine an audience that has some interest in the topics at hand, or that might have some interest. But often I am also writing to myself to remind myself, I'm speaking with myself, right? Because the aspects of me that are intelligent and capable are not always the aspects dominating my moment-to-moment consciousness, right? So I have to make a space where the intelligence of my interiority and my companions and allies and teachers and students, even though there are no teachers or students really, the spirit of those with whom we learn and for whom we live, and those who we would protect and care for and watch over, right? And also the spirits of my allies who watch over me. Such a profound thing, the seeing from above thing. The birds are always teaching me about this. They do it for each other all the time, right? One will go up high, the other will stay down low. Back and forth, they send the signal. Now they have both worlds covered, and if there's one even above them in the air, it's even better, right? They form the the body of unity, the intelligent body of unity. The challenges are surely upon us in general, and each of us will have unique, specific experience of this, and some of us, things are going to probably seem like they're mostly fine. That's the weird situation with being in the living world. Over here you can have someone who's dying, over here you can have someone who's having an orgasm, over here you have someone who's just, gotten the six-figure job, over here you have someone whose 15-year marriage is about to collapse, over here you have someone who's being raped, over here you have someone who's rescuing someone from being hurt, right? It's just the whole soup contains all of the flavors. All of the flavors. And our own life uniquely contains all of the flavors, differently at different times. This is the little pool. I was so happy the other day when I came here. To discover tadpoles in the water. There might even already be some frogs. Which makes me really, really happy. It's a kind of very local happiness. It doesn't pervade my whole existence, but the local happiness is good. These cattails, they make pollen. Pollen is very good. Pollen makes me very happy. Very happy that there's pollen. Let us encourage each other to stay the course, and let us encourage ourselves to walk in awareness, kindness, intelligence, gentleness, and hope, especially when we feel hopeless and bereft, especially when we are suffering and the fear of loss and death is strong upon us, especially in these times. Then we can grow. And when hardship comes, we will weather it well. Even if it is to be disaster, even if it is to be death, we can weather it well together. Even if we are physically apart. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to walking and learning together again very soon. Bye-bye for now.